Learning how to shoot photos with characters back when I learned was an all-day experience, and we got to do some unusual. So learning to shoot photos of characters was a major step as a PhotoPass photographer. We'd had all our training on how to use the cameras and how to take pictures of icons and how to interact with guests and all of that. After we had shot pictures on the streets of the icons, the castle, Spaceship Earth, Tree of Life, and stuff like that. After we had done that for a month or two and had kind of gotten the feel of everything, that's when we went in for character training. Character training was a whole nother step because it was going to add a whole bunch of other tools and open us up to a whole nother realm. And it involved some really neat stuff. In fact, a couple things of which I'm going to talk about here, I just want to let you know now. There are a couple things near the end of the video that will be not safe for magic. So if you have little ears or want to preserve a little bit of that, just be aware, near the end, there's going to be some things I talk about that will break down that wall a little bit. Our day of character training, and this has been a long time, so I'm hoping I remember everything right, but it started off as a whole day. It was a 9-hour day, if I remember right. And the first half of it was basically sitting in a room. There were about 24 of us, and we went over camera settings for indoors, what kind of cropping they wanted for the pictures, the angles, how to shoot them, because it was a little bit different. What the image should look like, what to look for, candids to look for. Because unlike the icon shots, which were just basically, hey, get a vertical of the castle, get a horizontal close-up, and then get a candid where you pose them as something doing silly. Candids you didn't direct. You just watched the interaction. And so it was kind of a what to watch for and when to capture that moment. They also talked about the meet and greet process, the general stream and flow of how it would go, getting to know the guests in line a little bit, and how to watch the line. We actually had a whole section on what to watch for in line, how to manage it, signs from the characters if they needed help with something, wardrobe. So we had 4 hours of just, here is all the stuff you need to know and how to fix it and how to take care of it. And if somebody needs help, whether it's the character attendant, what are you going to do? How do you work the line? So we had a lot of time. It was just a lot of information. Most of that training was how to take the shot, what pictures to look for, again, the vertical and the horizontal, how do you line those up, what candidates to look for, how to run the line. That was a big part of it because we were going to take on the role partially of a character attendant. That if the character attendant had to step away, we had to basically do their job to control the line, make sure the guests were coming up on top of the photographer bit. How to help the character and the attendant. A big part of that process eventually evolved into what we then called pass. That came in a couple of years later, but it started where we were at. And pass was just an evolution of, okay, here's everything that we're learning. Let's try and get this resolved and into a standard system. And so if you want to know more about pass, I've actually got a whole video just specifically about that. But basically, we spent a lot of time learning and working on what became pass and how to make the interactions flow, what our role was in it, and how to make sure that we captured the moment without creating the moment, if that makes sense. We weren't to be a part of it. We weren't a focus, but to help make sure that the character was the focus. So we had 4 hours of cramming all of this information in. And then it was time to practice after lunch. As I remember, like I said, it was about 24 of us. And then we had 2 characters come in. Minnie and Goofy joined us, along with an entertainment manager, and our trainer who'd been teaching us, and another one of our managers. So we had a few big, not big wigs, but we had management there to oversee and watch. We had characters that were experienced out there to help us learn, and then we had the trainers to make sure everything kind of facilitated. So we sat down first with the characters, and the characters talked to us. Minnie and Goofy told us what they expected, how they wanted us to do things, what worked well for them. So that way we would have an idea from the character's perspective what they were hoping that we would do and how we would do it, as opposed to us telling them what to do. Because, hey, we were the rookies. They knew what they were going. What would help them, what to look out for. And then we spent an hour and a half, probably, at least, on role-playing. And basically what we did was we kind of split up into two groups, one with Minnie, one with Goofy, and then the photographers began to play as the guests while we took turns being a photographer. We would kind of goof around and we would form up families and individuals and crazy kids, and we got creative. We went nuts. It's like, what was kind of the extreme situations, and we tried to kind of create that for whoever was being the photographer at the time, so that way we could, as photographers, we could see how the characters and the photographer would deal with it. Yes, we were the rude, obnoxious guests. We were the inappropriate guests. Okay, now we didn't do anything grossly inappropriate, but we actually did talk about it and hint about that, so that way we would know how to deal with it. We just got goofy. We had one of us that was the terrified child that didn't want to get anywhere near the character. And then we had of course, the super excited one who tackled the character, being very careful with them, of course. And we just worked through all of these different roles and scenarios, both as guests and as photographers. Okay, what are we going to possibly face? And just kind of letting our minds wander. And of course, when you actually get out in the park, you realize that you didn't come close to thinking of everything that the characters are going to see and deal with. Oh my goodness, we saw stuff. But it gave us a good foundation. And then we sat down afterwards and we debriefed. Minnie and Goofy again, okay, so here's what went right, here's what went wrong, here's where you need to improve. And what was fun and fascinating was them telling us, okay, when you did this, here is how I responded, here's what I would have wanted to respond, here's what I need you to do. As a photographer, when I'm making certain signs, okay, most of us know the hand over the eye, I need help with something. When I'm doing that, I need you to do this. And we laughed. We had a lot of laughs because we had a lot of goofballs. Believe it or not, I was actually one of the quieter, calmer ones. We had some really exuberant people. But it was fascinating to be able to have the characters tell us, okay, when you have that excited child that's going to tackle me, I need you to step in and, in their way just a little bit to slow them down. Don't stop them, but just slow them down so they don't hurt me. As a photographer, try to make sure their autograph books are all out, and if they've got more than a couple, stack them up because it's easier for me to sign them. When you have pens, this is something I wouldn't have thought of. The characters were the ones who told us, get the big Sharpies, the clickables, because when we've got these hands, small pens are hard to use. So get clickable Sharpies because it's easier for us to be able to use. And if the guest comes up with a small pen, I'm going to ask you for your pen. Here's what I want to see in a pose. And here's kind of the gestures I will make when I want to pose them certain ways. Here's kind of the character sign language so that you can interpret for us and tell these guests what I'm trying to say. Just a lot of neat information that way. So that way we were better able to help them. By the time we were done, we were basically prepared that we could not just be photographers and get the picture, but we could be the attendant, we could be an assistant to the character. And that was the ultimate goal, was to, in the course of that 8-hour day, to get all this information into us. It also made us prepared to know what a character was dealing with. So here's your not safe for magic part. One of the things that we did as part of it was Minnie and Goofy took off part of their costumes and we put them on. And most of us put on, it may have been like Goofy's shirt and jacket. And you'd be surprised how heavy that is. But most of us also put on the head. They wanted us to do that because then you could look through and you could see how heavy the head was, how it fit on the shoulders, how it limited their vision, how it limited their hearing, how it narrowed down what they were able to see and do, so that way we would know better how to compensate. Because those characters, if you've got a little kid running up, the character can see here, they can't see here. which means that kid's going to get them and they never see it coming. Showed us that, hey, we need to watch out for these things with the characters. So if they do have a little one, then we know, hey, they can't see them. Hey, Minnie, there's a little one here for you who wants to see you. And then Minnie knows to look down and see them. Putting on those heads, honestly, I think made all of us better photographers with the characters, because it gave us a much better understanding of what a character's limitations are. And so that way we could help compensate for it and help everything. Character training made us all better photographers, better team members, better light attendants. We learned more about how to manage crowds and guests with the character training, because there was so much in depth, and how to make a character meet and greet flow. I won't say that any of us could have stepped in as a character, because that's a whole nother level. But I think most of us that were in there, by the time we were done with that group of character training, our whole entire group, we could run a character line if the attendant was gone completely. We didn't need an attendant. We could be the photographer and the attendant, and we could do it. And there were times that I did that. There were a lot of times I had to do that for various reasons. Our group, because of how in-depth our training was, the characters loved when we came and worked with them, because they knew we were going to take care of them and be able to run everything and guide it and make it run smooth. And if there was an issue, we were prepared. Gradually, though, over the course of my 5 years, they began to cut back on how much time character training was. When I left, I think they only had like 4 hours, and I don't think they even worked with characters anymore. They just kind of got a quick classroom cram session. They didn't give them all the attendant training, and so they had to then go in and they really had to learn a lot more on the job than we did. And you could see the difference at the end. If I came up and the character recognized me, you know, or a couple of my coworkers from that group, we could always tell, because the characters would see us and, you know, and they would get happy and excited because they knew that what kind of job we were going to do. And when the new photographers would come in and get through character training, the characters, you could just kind of see we're going, oh no, okay, it's a rookie. So we got to know that whole process. And there were times, I do actually remember a couple times at Toontown where the lead attendant, so each character had an attendant with them, and then you had a kind of attendant over the room. And there were times they had to pull a couple people out, and us photographers, we could run that room with no attendants at all. And we did. But gradually, as the training got shortened and got cut back, the newer photographers didn't get as much training with the characters, didn't get any training at all with the characters. They just kind of got thrown out there. And you could see the difference in the type of job they did. That the more Disney cut back on the hours of training, and yes, I got a ton of training. All told, it was like between the beginning and then the main photography, it was probably a week. I mean, 5 days just to get with the icons. And then with everything else, we probably had about 8 days of training. Night shots, character training. And now I think the photographers get like 3. And there's just skills and information that they don't get. Now, current PhotoPass photographers, please correct me. Tell me how much training you actually got in the comments. I'd love to know. I'd love to know if they increased it again, because there was so much that we got that the new photographers weren't getting when I left. And I knew a few years ago they still weren't getting as much. So I'd love to know how much training you're getting now. But we had so much in depth, but it made us super effective, not just photographers, not just cast members, but guest relations in the parks, character attendants. We had so many skills that we were able to do so much that we could step out of any one of our roles and into another role if need be at a moment's notice. So it was great for us. It made us much more valuable to the company, and I'm afraid that they kind of forgot some of that. But that's a little look at what character training was like and what we did and how much we learned. And do you have questions? Because, I mean, hey, it's been a few years. I'm sure I probably forgot a few things. So please let me know. Drop your questions in the comments below. Have you been a photographer? Have you done character training? Have you been a character? I'd love to know your experiences as well and what you thought. Please share them below. Don't forget to hit that like button, share, and subscribe. Hey, I'm less than 100 subscribers away from 30,000. Come on. Would love to hit that mark. Thank you to my patrons, my YouTube supporters and members. Their finances help me do so much. And they get perks and relationships and more. If you want to know more about that, please check the description below. Thank you so incredibly much for watching. God bless. So we had two characters actually. Okay, let's jump back a little bit. And the guests were the focus. And that the dog toy was the focus. Our whole entire group, we could run a character line. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts, your comments, your suggestions, your ideas. Be sure to share them in the comments below, or you can contact me. There's information in the description that has my email address, fan pages, information about merchandise, and so much more. So be sure to check that out. Don't forget to hit that like button, share the video, and if you haven't already, hit the button right up there to subscribe. And in fact, if you did enjoy this, I've even got another video for you right here. And also about these wonderful people here, those are my YouTube members and my patrons, the ones whose financial support makes this possible. I couldn't do it without them. If you want to know more about that and the perks that come with it, well, be sure to check the description. There's a link right down there. Thank you so incredibly much. God bless.